I didn't expect the heat to come early. The inhibitors in my bag have run out and the peach-flavored pheromones are gushing out uncontrollably. I endured the burning heat all over my body and dialed Andrew's phone number. It took a long time for the call to be answered. "Henry, what are you up to again?" The man's voice sounded a bit impatient. The background was filled with noisy electronic rock music. I guessed he was in a bar again. I didn't have the strength to argue with him at the moment. I just weakly said, "Andrew, I'm in heat. Could you bring me some inhibitors?" There was a moment of silence on the other end, then he scoffed. "You know our pheromones have a high compatibility, yet you deliberately make up an excuse to see me. Do you want to see me lose control and mark you so that you can make it a done deal?" I didn't. Andrew didn't want to listen to my explanation. The childhood engagement was arranged by our parents. I've never admitted it. Don't have unrealistic fantasies about me. I will never like you. He sneered, his words slurred with drunkenness. Besides, what's the use of coming to me when you're in heat? I think what you need most now is to find a stick. Before I could say anything, the phone only had the beeping sound of being hung up. I curled up on the ground. My legs were too weak to stand up and I didn't even have the strength to pick up my phone. It's so hot. It's like there's a fire burning in my heart. By this time, school was already over and everyone had left. No one knew there was an omega in heat hiding in the classroom. I gasped softly in discomfort and my mind was in a complete mess. Just as my remaining rationality was about to fade away, I heard a creaking sound in my ear. The back door was pushed open and the setting sun shone in through the crack of the door. The person coming in was backlit. I couldn't see their face clearly. I only heard them softly call out, "Henry." I recognized this voice. It was the quiet and studious good student, Benjamin. The pheromones in the classroom were extremely strong. Benjamin also realized something. He said stiffly, "I'll go buy some inhibitors." The school canteen was already closed, and the nearest pharmacy was still a kilometer away. An omega in heat is extremely insecure. I didn't want to be alone. The fear of being alone surged up like a tide. Like a drowning man grasping at a floating log, I hoarsely cried out, "Don't go!" The young man paused in his steps, took out his phone and said something. After hesitating for a moment, he still squatted in front of me. "The ambulance will be here soon. You hold on a little longer." His mouth opened and closed. I recognized every word he said, but I couldn't form a complete sentence in my mind. It felt as if tens of thousands of ants were crawling in my chest. It was itchy and hot, and I was so uncomfortable that I was almost suffocating. What can relieve the estrous symptoms of an omega besides inhibitors is the pheromone of an alpha, and Benjamin is an alpha. After realizing this, all the cells in my body seemed to get excited, clamoring for it. My body was already out of my brain's control. I propped myself up and reached out to grab the collar of the young man. Benjamin was caught off guard and staggered and fell down. I took the opportunity to wrap my arms around his shoulders and sniffed at his neck like a puppy. The buttons of his shirt were fastened all the way to the top, and there was also a pheromone suppressant patch on the back of his neck. He wrapped himself up tightly. Apart from the fresh scent of laundry detergent on his clothes, I couldn't smell a single trace of pheromone on him. "Give it to me." I was so anxious that I was almost crying. I roughly tugged at his buttons, but I didn't have the slightest bit of strength. Benjamin grabbed my hand all at once and wouldn't let me move around. His voice was hoarse. "Henry, you can't." I lowered my head and said nothing, just rubbing against him blindly. "I want your pheromone. Will you give it to me?" The classroom was filled with my scent. The strong pheromone almost wrapped Benjamin up like a peach. He clenched his fists tightly, and the veins on the back of his hands were bulging. His long eyelashes drooped over his eyelids, and his face was flushed red, as if he was trying hard to endure something. I stared blankly at him, mesmerized. Benjamin was quite aloof and often kept to himself. Before this, I had never had any contact with him. Without exaggeration, this is the first time I've seen his face so clearly and directly. Benjamin is unexpectedly good-looking. He has narrow and long eyes and a high-nose bridge. His lips are rosy and plump. They look so kissable. Under the influence of pheromones, I'm much bolder than usual. My body reacts faster than my mind. When my lips touch his, I can't help but let out a sigh. Just as I imagined, I sense his pheromones. It's a very strong smell of rum. As taught in physiology class, besides marking, kissing is also an important way to obtain pheromones. But it's too little, like a trickle flowing into the sea. Instead of relieving the feeling, it makes me feel even more empty. It's not enough. I want more. I lick his lips. Benjamin stares at me with wide eyes, looking utterly incredulous. I ignore him and can't help but explore deeper. But the next moment, I'm suddenly pushed away. Do you know what you're doing? Benjamin's lips are glistening with moisture, and his voice trembles slightly. The intense pheromones are rampaging through my body. My glands are heating up, feeling stuffy and itchy. I don't say a word. I just silently bury my head in his shoulder and neck. I expose my fair nape, my most vulnerable spot, completely in front of him. Mark me. So painful, Benjamin. Please, give me some pheromones. I completely lose my mind and call his name over and over again with a sob in my voice. Just as I was on the verge of fainting, a big hand grabbed my neck. A gloomy and fierce voice whispered in my ear, "Don't ever regret it." Then, there was a sharp pain in the back of my neck as my gland was bitten through. A continuous stream of pheromones was forcefully injected into my body, instantly spreading throughout it. It was both pleasurable and painful. I felt numb all over and almost lost all my strength. The strong smell of alcohol enveloped me. Although I hadn't drunk any, I felt terribly drunk. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier, and I finally fell asleep. When I woke up again, I was in a hospital ward. I touched my gland through the suppression patch and was instantly startled. I don't know how much force Benjamin used. Even a light touch hurt badly. There was a strange feeling in my palm. I opened it to take a look. It was a button. I guessed I must have accidentally pulled it off Benjamin's clothes. Out of some strange impulse, I brought it to my nose and sniffed. It still seemed to carry a faint smell of alcohol. Realizing my creepy behavior, I blushed instantly and hid the button in my pocket to cover it up. The doctor prescribed some inhibitors but suddenly called me back just as he was about to leave. Find some time to come and get your pheromone compatibility tested with your boyfriend. After realizing who he was referring to, I explained he's not my boyfriend. But then I saw the doctor waving his hand, looking as if he understood everything and would never expose our puppy love. So I had to keep quiet. Is there a problem? Not really. It's just that his pheromones have integrated very well with yours in your body. I think your compatibility should be quite high. For alphas and omegas, pheromones are an important factor in their attraction to each other. The higher the compatibility, the stronger the control over each other's pheromones and the higher quality the offspring will be. Generally speaking, a compatibility of 80% is already very high. When Andrew and I got a 99% compatibility result back then, it even made the social news. I didn't take the doctor's words seriously. Could the compatibility be as high as 100%? So far, there has never been a pheromone with a 100% compatibility rate in the world. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was a message from Andrew. "I'm sorry, Henry. I drank too much yesterday and said something I shouldn't have. I rushed to the classroom, but there was no one there. Are you at home now? I'll come to see you, Dada." I watch coldly, not a single ripple stirring in my heart. Once the words are spoken, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they have caused irreversible harm. After a long silence, I still blocked him. I can't tell if it's relief or regret. Maybe it's both. Andrew and I grew up together. We've been inseparable since kindergarten. Our parents often joked that we couldn't be so close after our differentiation. Andrew raised his chin, patted his chest, and said without hesitation, "If we have the same gender, we'll be brothers. If we have different genders, I'll marry Henry. Anyway, we won't be separated." His confident look made our two families burst into laughter. I lowered my head and kicked him, protesting, "Why can't I be the alpha?" Andrew glanced at me quickly and blushed. "Then I'll marry you." I suddenly burst out laughing. In the first semester of Senior 2, we both went through differentiation. One became an alpha and the other an omega. The pheromone compatibility rate was 99%, unexpectedly high. Our parents were so happy that they immediately became in-laws. I didn't feel much. I should say I didn't even react. Only Andrew hung his head, looking rather reluctant. He started to avoid me, ignoring me. As soon as school was over, he would go to bars and clubs. I can feel that this close friend of more than a decade is drifting further and further away from me. I don't know what I did wrong. So I chased after him, wanting him to give me an answer. My persistent pestering only earned me his deeper disgust. Everyone is forcing me to be with you. No one cares whether I'm willing or not. A life controlled by pheromones is just disgusting. Looking at him lying drunk on the ground, I couldn't quite describe my feelings. Actually, I just wanted to be good friends with him like before. I never thought it would trouble him so much. After the heat period ended, I returned to school for classes. As I walked into the classroom, I immediately saw Benjamin sitting by the door. He was wearing the blue and white school uniform, and the collar of his shirt was still buttoned up all the way to the top. His meticulous appearance seemed somewhat ascetic. I licked my lips, and the back of my neck with the suppressant patch inexplicably felt hot. I deliberately walked past him, but saw him with his head down, not even sparing me a glance. Cold and distant. It was as if the person who had grabbed my neck and bitten my gland in the classroom a few days ago wasn't him. He was trying to distance himself from me. Realizing this, I suddenly felt a bit annoyed. After kissing and biting, it won't be so easy to act like strangers. Perhaps I stared at him for too long, and finally the young man showed some reaction. He raised his eyes. The bottom of his eyes was dark, churning with indescribable desire. Finally, he said in a voice only audible to the two of us, "What? Isn't the heat period over? If you don't want to be bitten, stay away from me." As if tearing off his long-standing disguise, he showed his nastiness to me without any concealment. I was slightly stunned, but my heart began to pound wildly. When I couldn't help but look at him again, I saw him lowering his eyelids and returning to his usual cold look. It seemed that everything just now was just my illusion. When I returned to my seat and just sat down, Andrew leaned over. "Henry, why did you block me? Are you still angry?" He was very close. Even though I had put on the suppression patch, I could still smell the scent of his pheromones. The minty scent rushed into my nostrils, and I felt uncomfortable all over. Speaking of which, it was really strange. Once, the high compatibility of our pheromones always made me unconsciously want to get closer to Andrew. But today, when I smelled the scent on him, I inexplicably felt nauseous. It took me a great deal of effort to suppress my urge to vomit. Frowning, I took out a mask from my pocket and put it on, quietly moving a bit farther away from him. He noticed my actions. Andrew stared at me with wide eyes, looking completely incredulous. "Henry, do you despise me?" "No. I just have a cold and I'm afraid of infecting you." "Really?" He was a bit skeptical but didn't ask any further. After all, in everyone's eyes, I was eager to cling to him. How could I possibly despise him? On the podium, the class teacher knocked on the table and announced a seat change. The seats are changed once a semester, and students can choose freely according to their rankings. Benjamin was the first to stand up and move his books to the corner. He isolated himself from everyone. Everyone was used to this. When it was my turn, Andrew suddenly called out to me. "Henry, I've made an appointment with the fat guy to sit together." He didn't finish his sentence, but I understood what he meant. Andrew doesn't study well and can only choose his seat last every time. It's well known that the pheromone compatibility between me and him is high. The classmates in the class have tacitly reserved the seat next to me. "Got it." I nodded, then, under everyone's noses, pulled out the stool next to Benjamin and sat down. The classroom fell silent instantly. "You." Seemingly not expecting me to be so proactive, Benjamin was obviously stunned for a moment. "What? Do you also have someone you want to sit with? Do you need me to give up my seat?" I blinked my big, watery eyes and looked at him pitifully. I moved inwards, with my chin almost touching his shoulder. Benjamin turned his head and a blush crept up his earlobes. He spoke stiffly to explain. "No, there's no one I want to sit with." I nodded in satisfaction. "That's good." Benjamin is a man of few words. I could talk to him all day, but he might not say a single word. I like to tease him when I'm free. As long as I get a little closer, he'll get all riled up like a hedgehog. Then, blushing, he'll tell me not to get so close. Looking at his back as he fled again, I couldn't help but doubt myself. The peach-flavored pheromone shouldn't smell bad, right? There was a commotion at the door. Looking up, I saw a freshman Omega confessing her love to Andrew. Andrew is good looking and quite high profile. When he first entered the school, he was even named the most handsome alpha of that year. Things like an Omega confessing her love to him happen every now and then. I withdrew my gaze disinterestedly and reached out to poke the person in front of me. "Hey, actually I think Benjamin is much more handsome than Andrew. Although he's a bit cold, it can't be that no one likes him, right? Because he's a defective alpha." "Defective alpha?" I was stunned. The person in front lowered their voice and said he can't even secrete pheromones. No Omega would want to suffer. Just as the words fell, Benjamin walked in from outside. I squinted my eyes slightly and followed his movements with my gaze as he took his seat. Leaning on my chin, I quietly traced his delicate side profile. There was a slight ripple in my heart. A defective alpha? Then who was the one who marked me and injected me with pheromones in the classroom that day? What's wrong? Noticing my gaze, Benjamin touched his face, his tone a bit unnatural. I grabbed the sleeve of his coat and pretended to be flippant. Aren't you hot wearing so much? Or are you hiding some unspeakable secret? As if I had touched a sore spot, Benjamin suddenly stood up. He shook off my hand and suddenly changed his expression. Don't touch me. His voice was quite loud and there were timid whispers around. Sure enough, he's a defective alpha. He has such a strange temper. I don't know what Henry is thinking. Why is he sitting next to him? Benjamin turned his head away, seemingly not caring about these words at all. My expression froze. I was stunned for a couple of seconds before awkwardly withdrawing my hand. I'm all too familiar with the expression on his face. Andrew was like this too. He had a cold face and told me not to pester him anymore. I always thought that after Benjamin helped me through my heat that day, our relationship would be different from before. At least we could be friends, right? I didn't expect it was just my own wishful thinking. Maybe he simply doesn't need friends. I gave a self-mocking smile and silently withdrew my gaze. So I didn't notice Benjamin's obviously abnormal breathing and the hand slightly trembling by his side. I had a cold war with Benjamin. To be precise, I isolated him unilaterally. I no longer took the initiative to talk to him. When I encountered problems I couldn't solve, I asked the teacher instead of him. Even when I ran into him in the corridor, I deliberately walked around him. Unexpectedly, Benjamin got anxious first and actually took the initiative to break the ice with me. A small cake appeared in front of me. Benjamin stood beside me with his hands clenched, looking like he had something to say. What do you want? I saw it on the way and bought it. It's peach flavored. I thought you might like it. Peach was the smell of my pheromone. Unexpectedly, he still remembered. My ears flushed, but I still let out a cold snort and turned around with my back to him. I hate cakes the most. Take it away. After a moment of silence, I heard the sound of plastic rubbing. When I looked back again, Benjamin and the small cake on the table had both disappeared. No, dude. Don't you even know how to say something nice? I'm really easy to appease. I originally thought that if he apologized on his own initiative, I'd give him a way out. Now it's fine. I'm even angrier. This mood lasted until the physical fitness test in the afternoon. Sit-ups are done in pairs. Everyone else quickly found a partner, but Benjamin stood there all alone, looking like a poor little thing. After a moment of hesitation, I sighed and finally stepped forward to hold his legs. There were quite a few curious looks, and even Andrew in the distance cast his gaze. He frowned, looking a bit complicated, and it was hard to tell what he was thinking. Henry. When Benjamin saw it was me, his eyes lit up immediately. Looking at his dazed look, I said rather crossly, "Don't want to be in a group with me? Then I'll leave." I do. Seemingly really afraid that I would just leave like that, he hugged his head and quickly started moving. Almost instantly, he made up for the lag. I couldn't help but sigh. The young lad has really good abdominal and lumbar strength. After doing dozens more sit-ups, Benjamin finally slowed down. Taking advantage of the movement of getting up, his head slowly approached mine, almost touching. I heard his gentle panting. "Henry, I'm sorry." When I looked up, I met his gaze. The young lad's clear eyes were full of sincerity. "I didn't mean to lose my temper with you that day. It's just..." He paused, looking troubled as if there was something hard to say. "If you don't want to say it, don't. I don't mean to force you. Everyone has their own little secrets that they can't tell. I understand." To stop him from being troubled, I changed the subject. "Aren't you really hot?" It was so stuffy in the stadium that it was hard to breathe. There were fine beads of sweat all over Benjamin's forehead. He hesitated for a moment and finally unzipped his jacket and took it off. Then he showed the long-sleeved sweatshirt inside. After the physical education class was over, Benjamin stayed behind to organize the sports equipment. I quietly slipped into the equipment room with him. I watched as he put away the last racket, then turned around holding the rack and silently locked eyes with me. Benjamin is very tall. His broad shoulders almost hide my whole body under him. The equipment room was dim. Only a few beams of sunlight came in through the narrow windows from the corner. It made me think of the setting sun shining into the classroom through the crack of the door that evening. I seemed to smell that intoxicating smell of alcohol again. "Henry, don't you want to know why I hide my pheromones so tightly? Is he going to be honest with me?" My heart skipped a beat, but I still pretended and said, "It's okay. I'm not that curious." "Who am I kidding? I'm actually extremely curious. Tell me, quickly tell me." As if making some major decision, Benjamin pulled me to the corner and asked me to sit on the mat. Then he crossed his hands, grabbed the hem of his clothes and lifted it up, taking off his own shirt. It's not Big Brother. Is this right? You can explain, but why are you taking off your clothes? This is the first time I've seen an alpha's half-naked body since my differentiation. I just didn't have time to blush when I noticed something was wrong. With the dim light, I finally saw clearly. Under Benjamin's bare skin, there were full of blue and purple marks and countless dense needle holes. It's pheromone disorder syndrome. Benjamin's voice was very calm. While others only need 1 dose of inhibitor during the susceptible period, I need 10 times the dose to barely control myself. The doctor said that if this goes on for a long time, my gland will eventually be damaged. In the end, I'll completely lose my fertility and become an inferior alpha. Isn't there any solution at all? There is. Benjamin looked down at me, his dark eyes becoming even deeper. The pheromones of an omega can relieve my symptoms. But I'm allergic to almost all pheromones. I held my breath, hardly believing it. This is a dead end. But in an instant, some images flashed through my mind. I swallowed hard and spoke cautiously. You're not allergic to my pheromones, right? Benjamin knelt on one knee, his nose almost touching mine. It was so close that I could feel his scorching breath hitting my face mercilessly. Henry, since I differentiated, you're the only one I've been in close contact with without having an allergic reaction. His voice was very soft, like the rubbing of feathers, making my ears itch. Little Peach, I like the smell very much. This sounded like a confession, and I blushed all over. My long-term coldness and refusal to get close to you. It's not my real intention. I'm just too greedy. Once I smell a bit of your scent, I crave more. I'm afraid that one day even the strongest inhibitors won't be able to control my pheromones. It got quiet all around, and Benjamin leaned quietly on the cushion. He looked calm on the surface, but his pale knuckles from gripping tightly still betrayed his nervousness. At this moment, he was like a stray puppy, obediently wagging its tail, waiting to be chosen or abandoned. I felt so soft-hearted that I almost blurted out without much thought. Let me help you. What? Benjamin suddenly looked up, hardly believing his ears. I looked into his eyes and spoke firmly. From now on, I'll provide you with pheromones during your susceptible period. Don't take inhibitors anymore. After all, we're friends. It's normal for friends to help each other. Right? Friends. The young man repeated it in a low voice, savoring the word. All the ambiguity and indescribable feelings melted away in this single word, friend. Can I have a little bit of your pheromones now? He whispered. Is a pursuit also a test? Put your clothes on first. Benjamin blushed and hurriedly pulled on his sweatshirt. I smiled helplessly and stepped forward to give him a big hug. His arms slowly tightened, and finally he hugged me tightly in his arms. The pheromones of rum and peach intertwined. The smell wasn't very strong, but it still made the two of them let out comfortable sighs. My nape was getting hot. After feeling the changes in my body, I quickly pushed the person away. Okay, that's enough. Benjamin lifted his head from my neck. His eyes were filled with mist, and even the corners of his eyes were red. My heart was pounding wildly, as if it was about to jump out of my chest the next moment. I turned my face away and didn't look at him. I just panicked and pushed open the door and ran out. As I came out of school, I saw Andrew standing at the crossroads at a glance. He was standing there lazily with one hand in his pocket, as if waiting for someone. Not wanting to say hello, I walked straight to the bus stop, but a hand suddenly blocked in front of me. Henry, go home together today. Andrew smiled. He was very close. Inevitably, I smelled the mint on him and the pheromones of other strange omegas. I frowned and said nothing. I got on the bus on my own and found a seat by the window to sit down. Andrew was stunned for a moment and quickly followed. Did you drink? Why do you smell so strongly of alcohol? I turned my head away and ignored him. Andrew gave a dry laugh and awkwardly changed the subject. Remember before, as soon as we finished school, we would go to the video game arcade and often play for an entire afternoon. In the end, both of us were grabbed by the ears and went home to receive a spanking. Mentioning the past, Andrew's expression softened as if there had never been any estrangement between us. I found it a bit funny. It was he who took the initiative to distance himself from me back then, and it was also he who told me not to pester him anymore. Now I don't know what's gotten into him, and he's acting all sentimental as if nothing had happened. What exactly do you want to say? I impatiently interrupted him. Henry. Andrew hesitated a bit. What's your relationship with Benjamin? After all this build-up, it turned out this was the real point. What's it to you? How can it not be my business? Andrew got anxious. We were engaged in a baby betrothal. It's not really appropriate for you to be so close to an alpha now. I was so angry that I laughed and couldn't help throwing his own words back at him. What baby betrothal? I've never admitted it. Besides, I think you're right. As an omega, I really shouldn't be too close to an alpha. To avoid making my boyfriend jealous, you'd better stay away from me from now on. Boyfriend? Andrew murmured, his face full of disbelief. Didn't you just ask me what my relationship with Benjamin is? I'm telling you now that he's my boyfriend. But he's an inferior alpha. That's right. I nodded. So what I like is him as a person, not his pheromones. How is that possible? Andrew looked dejected. By the time I had walked far away, he was still standing there in a daze. The next day at school, Andrew's seat was empty. Meeting Benjamin's gaze, I felt a bit embarrassed. I had used him as a shield without permission yesterday, and now that the person himself was right in front of me, I couldn't help feeling a bit guilty. What's wrong? Sensing my uneasiness, Benjamin asked in a low voice. I tugged at the hem of my clothes and looked up at him with big, watery eyes. Yesterday, Andrew asked me what our relationship was. Do you want to know what I said? Benjamin was stunned and slowly sat up straight. The ambiguous emotional factors were wandering in the air. He coughed lightly and deliberately kept his voice calm. Aren't we friends? But I said you were my boyfriend. All of a sudden, Benjamin's face turned red instantly. His eyes were drifting aimlessly. I lowered my head and let out a short laugh. Then I reached out and poked his arm. So are you or not? Little genius. Can I be your boyfriend? Benjamin lowered his eyes, his voice tense and hoarse. But then he suddenly became firm. Henry, I want to be your boyfriend. Seeing his clear eyes, my heart softened. I took his fingertips and whispered, Benjamin, I agree. As the college entrance examination was approaching, most of the optional courses were canceled. This was the last physiology class. I propped my chin up and listened boredly. But under the table, I quietly took Benjamin's hand. On the podium, the teacher tapped the blackboard and started talking about pheromone compatibility. The higher the pheromone compatibility, the better the quality of the offspring. Currently, the highest compatibility in the world is 99%. Because it is very rare, it is often called the fated pair. Is that the case for Andrew and Henry? In an instant, almost everyone's eyes fell on me. The teacher stopped the commotion and smiled. Since there is a case in our class, for the next knowledge point, I'll use these two students as examples to explain. The pheromone compatibility between Andrew and Henry is 99%. If Henry is accidentally marked by someone, then Andrew can unconditionally overwrite the pheromones left by other alphas in Henry's body. Can even a lifelong mark be overwritten? Someone asked. Of course. Otherwise, how could it be called a fated match? My left hand was being squeezed rather painfully. I turned my head and saw Benjamin frowning tightly, looking extremely tense. What if someone has a 100% compatibility with Henry? A girl asked timidly. The teacher paused for a moment and let out a laugh. Then this person can overwrite the pheromones of any alpha. However, there has never been a 100% compatibility case in the world so far. This class was extremely torturous. If looks could I should have been shot full of holes by my classmates long ago. The bell rang for the end of class and I let out a long sigh of relief. I turned my head and found that Benjamin seemed to be in an abnormal state. His face was pale, his hands were clenched into fists, and his whole body was shaking uncontrollably. Benjamin, are you okay? Henry, I think my susceptible period is coming. As he said that, he reached for his bag, but I stopped him. You can't use the inhibitor anymore. I comforted him. Don't be afraid. I'll stay with you. After asking for leave from the head teacher, I followed Benjamin back to his home. It was a one-bedroom, one-living-room rental apartment, and there were traces of only his life in the whole house. Do you live alone? Where are your parents? Benjamin lowered his eyes, and his voice was a bit hoarse. They had a younger brother and sent me here. They send me money every month. He spoke vaguely, but I instantly understood what he meant. Ostensibly letting me fend for myself, but actually abandoning me. My nose felt sour. Holding back the soreness in my heart, I stepped forward and hugged him. You're such a poor thing. Benjamin buried his head in my neck and said in a muffled voice, It's okay. I have you now. He paused for a moment and then continued. Henry, I'm so jealous of Andrew. I'm jealous that he has such a high compatibility with you. I'm jealous that everyone thinks you two are destined. But the person I like is you. I kissed his side face and then his lips. Then I began to slowly release my own pheromones. In the small room, the scents of peach and rum intertwined and merged. It made people indulge and never wake up. Perhaps soothed by the pheromones, Benjamin's susceptible period only lasted for 3 days. Except for being a bit mentally fatigued, he returned to normal in other aspects. Just as I threw the empty nutrient solution packages all over the floor into the trash can, my phone rang. Benjamin lay in bed and silently looked at me. Andrew is sick and hospitalized. My mom is on a business trip, so she asked me to go and see him. Is that okay, boyfriend? I shook his hand and acted coquettishly. Benjamin kissed the back of my hand and his voice was incredibly gentle. Baby, I won't interfere with your socializing. Do whatever you want. As soon as I entered the hospital, Mr. and Mrs. Pei grabbed me and rushed me to the ward as if I were a life-saving straw. He got into a fight with someone in the bar. Stimulated by the pheromones, he entered his susceptible period early. He's so stubborn. He refuses to take the inhibitor no matter what. Even when he's unconscious, he keeps mumbling your name. Henry, since your compatibility is so high, why don't you give him a little pheromone? We really can't bear to see him like this. I refused firmly. Sorry, uncle and aunt. I already have a boyfriend now. It might not be appropriate to give Andrew pheromones. Mr. and Mrs. Pei looked at each other, looking a bit embarrassed. Perhaps the discussion was too loud. Andrew on the hospital bed slowly woke up. Henry. He was very surprised to see me. But this joy didn't last long. He smelled the lingering scent of rum on me. You've been marked by him? How could you? I said coldly. This has nothing to do with you. People in the susceptible period always have uncontrollable emotions, and Andrew is no exception. The smell of mint was swirling around the ward. My body seemed to activate a defense mode and instinctively rejected the strange pheromones. The room was so stuffy that it was suffocating. I considered my task done just by taking a look and didn't intend to stay any longer. Andrew was held down on the hospital bed by his parents, roaring with red, rimmed eyes. Why? Clearly the person you like is me. Clearly our compatibility is the highest. Who said I like you? I couldn't help but say, Andrew, I've always only regarded you as a friend. But now we can't even be friends. Is our compatibility the highest? That's not necessarily true. Just now in the ward, I clearly had an aversion to Andrew's pheromones. Recalling what the teacher said in the physiology class, I took out my phone and called Benjamin. Boyfriend, do you have time to come to the hospital to take a pheromone compatibility test? Benjamin and I were like newly married couples who had just got their marriage certificates. We were sitting in a row, extremely nervous. 100%. The doctor rushed out with the pheromone test form. His already not very fair face was now flushed with excitement. The world's first case of 100% compatibility has actually been discovered in our hospital. This is big news. Although I had expected it, I was still stunned when I learned the result. Benjamin's eyes were red. He hugged me tightly and the tears fell like there was no tomorrow. Henry, it turns out you're the one destined for me. After learning that Benjamin and I had a 100% compatibility, Andrew was so angry that he almost jumped off the building. But of course he didn't jump. He was sent abroad by his parents before the college entrance examination. Unable to get into a university in the country, he had to go abroad to study at his parents' expense. When the college entrance examination results came out, Benjamin and I applied for the same university. While he worked part-time during the summer vacation to earn living expenses, I just lay on the bed in his rental apartment blowing the air conditioner. When he was tired, I would reward him with a kiss and a hug. A 100% compatibility is really different. On many late nights, in the cramped space, charming and mellow peach-flavored rum was brewed. The bed creaked. Benjamin kissed my lips and smiled tenderly. I've caught you, little peach.